Because normally we show manuscripts from the past, books from the past, things that bring us closer to authors and their creativity. And I have indeed put a few things out down at the bottom, which I'll speak to very, very briefly. But today we have two wonderful writers whose work will be familiar to many of you. And I'm just so pleased and grateful that they have agreed to talk a little bit to us down at that end of the room about how they write. And they're great friends. Andrew Sean Greer is a Pulitzer Prize winner for his wonderful, wonderful novel, Less. And he followed it up with an equally wonderful novel called Less is Lost. They're wonderful, and there are other books as well.
Charmed by everything you said.
I would really recommend you to read them. They're touching, humane, funny, and beautifully written. And I discovered that Andrew and I, he's a little younger than me, but not that much. 3 years. But we grew up in exactly the same neighborhood in Rockville, Bethesda. And we know the same playgrounds.
We know the same trash cans.
We know the same trash cans. Anyway, that's another story. But it's wonderful to have you here with your great friend, Daniel Handler, who is the most amazing person creatively, not just for his many novels and the beloved Lemony Snicket series, but for his work as a scriptwriter, a television producer, and as a really notable musician, an accordionist. And I think you've played several times and maybe on an album with the Magnetic Fields.
It's true.
And I was in the car a few weeks ago, and there's a wonderful program called Private Passions, introduced by Michael Barclay, and I so much enjoyed hearing your insights into music. So you don't just play music, but you know a great deal about it. What else to say? Yes, we may be slightly breaking my cardinal 10-minute rule today. I hope you'll indulge us. The terrace, as ever, is open for those of you who want to go up to the 5th floor. And so I think without more ado, we should all gather down that end of the room, where I'll scoot through a few things and then we'll get the real deal from Andrew and Daniel. So.
Hello.
Right. You'll have plenty of time to look at these afterwards, but this is my little speed date with some literary manuscripts from our collection. This is Thomas Traherne, who really emerged as a metaphysical poet at the end of the 19th century with the rediscovery of a series of his manuscripts. Manuscripts in the hand of the author at this time are vanishingly rare. And I love Traherne because, actually, unlike a lot of the metaphysical poets, his poetry is upbeat and joyful. If you haven't read Traherne, read him. Okay, I told you I was going to be quick. This is the earliest surviving a volume of juvenilia of Jane Austen, completed in 1793 when she was 17, but actually compiled of things written from the age of 11 onwards. There are 3 surviving volumes. We have the first, and the first is always the best. We'll pass over the fact that the British Library have the other 2. You can't have everything.
Never heard.
This is one of several fascicules of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Of course, composed in 1817 as a result of a ghost story by Lake Geneva. And it's very interesting editorially because of the interventions of Percy Shelley, and still inspires lots of debate about the nature and degree of the collaboration between them. This I love, it's very moving. It is one of the drafts of Gerard, Manley, Hopkins, Binsey, Poplars, written in Oxford, March the 13th, 1879, in response to the felling of poplar trees on Port Meadow. And so it's a very powerful poem about our tendency to desecrate nature. And actually, it was quite easy to fundraise for this because we had various supporters in the university who were furious at the time that the university was building huge, great student blocks in the very same landscape. So it was quite an easy argument to win with this one. I sometimes think there's no such thing as a fair copy. Writers always go back and change, correct, redraft. This is the original manuscript of Thomas Hardy's Poems of the Past and the Present. It is the manuscript that he sent to the printer, but he couldn't resist making all sorts of changes before that happened. And you can actually see, if you look, the inky thumbprints of the compositors. It tells us that it was in the print shop. And actually, if you're ever doing research on manuscripts, always look for printers' thumbprints and marks. It's always going to be darker ink. It'll give you a clue as to whether it's been set or not. And then finally, just something I love, we have a lot of manuscripts and letters of Philip Larkin. I'm particularly interested in his visual imagination. And often in archives and collections, things like postcards and greetings cards are put at the back of the pile. They're not seen necessarily to be as important as a working notebook. But in a number of occasions, Larkin actually sent cards such as this of Priam winning the Gold Cup at Goodwood in 1831. And on the back, he has composed a poem that responds directly to the image. And in fact, this poem wasn't known before we started cataloguing the collection. So never underestimate something that appears at first glance to be ephemeral. Right, okay, that's me done. Over to the important bit. Daniel and Andrew, tell us a bit about how you write.
Just like this.
Yeah, exactly the same. Hello, I'm happy to be here. I've been here for a few months now as a visiting fellow at All Souls. My favorite librarian from the All Souls Library is here.
This is
Where's Elena?
Yeah.
All Souls.
Yeah. And it was very exciting to have Andy come and visit me. I'm trying to encourage him to apply and be here for months so I can come visit him and continue our working relationship. We've been swimming just about every morning during the visit, right where the Binsey poplars once were. There's some poplars left. There's some still there, and we put our clothes there and walk up, and then jump in and swim downstream.
But that's part of the working day, even when no, it is. Like it's what we do in San Francisco too. Like it's begins today.
Yeah, we are both members of the Dolphin Club in San Francisco, which is one of two rival clubs that share one wooden building, bitterly without any notion of why they hate each other so much. And we swim in the San Francisco Bay just about every morning. And that we've both found that if we assign ourselves a knotty problem that is bugging us in our manuscripts, and we just think about it for a moment, and then we go into the cold water and swim for a little while, that sometimes the subconscious takes care of it for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great, and then sometimes we will, like we have here, I've followed him into the also to the library to sit and then quietly work. Often we will work across the table from each other in a cafe back in San Francisco, or separate. But I think we both do something similar. You were the first one to start writing on like really index cards. I still don't physically do that.
Yeah, but we both start with a pile of books. Here at All Souls, it was a much larger pile of books than it normally is, and so the project that I'm working on is kind of expanded exponentially. But we start with books that just seem like they want to be together in our minds, and we look at them, and they lead us to other books, and soon we have what I think of as kind of the personal canon of the novel that I'm working on. A few books. I take a bunch of notes on them on index cards, and then I move the index cards on top of the dining room table, leading to a lively discussion with my wife about whether the dining room table is for index cards or whether it is for dining. Doesn't matter. And then I start to work on a loose manuscript, which I keep, perhaps to everyone's nightmare here, I used to keep in the refrigerator with the fantasy that if the house burned down, it wouldn't burn down. Led to another lively conversation. What is the crisper drawer in the refrigerator for? Is it for lettuce or is it for manuscripts? And that discussion led to a wonderful birthday gift I received recently of a fireproof box, which is now where I store my manuscripts.
I didn't know any of that.
Yeah. I love my wife very much.
And I think we both have a practice, a lot of writers do this, of carrying around a little notebook. Whenever I have...
Look, I have a notebook and index cards.
I don't do that.
You're stopping
but
me.
like, it's a good one if you like, at those moments when you would take out your iPhone because you feel tense because you're alone and waiting for a bus or something, like, notebook's better. Pay attention, take notes.
Yeah.
Also great for, going around, where do we go? Like the Pitt Rivers and just like write down all the stuff.
You're stirring my heart.
So I keep these. I don't throw them away. Yeah. He has a much better archival system than I do, but you've written a lot more.
I throw them into a plastic bin until the plastic bin is full, and then I put up the cover on the plastic bin, and then I have a basement looking increasingly like the final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's where I keep my sled, Rosebud, and many others.
But I don't have index cards, but I do. Recently, last book I've been writing. I have a word processing program that allows me to basically make index cards of like writing a little piece, and I don't know where it's going to go. So then I move them around on my virtual dining room table.
Yeah, whereas your actual dining room table remains pristine.
Well, I don't have a dining
ready
room table.
to eat on.
Yeah.
But we read each other's work in messy manuscript form. Usually there's like a first reading of, I have about 75 pages and I'm wondering if I've lost my mind. There's that reading, and then there's the more serious reading of a draft, and so we have many notes in each other's margins. I have one taped up in my wall of my office at home from a book that'll be out here in a few months that Andy read an early draft of, and it says on top of the page, "Time to wrap things up."
I once had a book I was really, it was a time travel novel, and Daniel read the first draft of it, and he met me at a great bar in San Francisco, and he had a gimlet waiting for me. And I sat down and he said, "It is an honor to watch you struggle with a work of art. It was the most gracious way someone could say you have a really long way to go.
Yeah.
Which I did.
And it's been beyond a pleasure to be here for the fellowship. I didn't know if, I felt a little impostery because I'm surrounded by academics there, but almost immediately one of a quite esteemed academic in Sanskrit literature said to me, "What's your research method?" And I panicked and I asked him to look different places, but he wouldn't. He kept his eye on me, so I had to answer. And I stumbled something out, and he said, "I was only kidding. There's no such thing as a research method. Nobody knows what they're doing." It was a real relief to me. And so I started at the All Souls Library proper, which has those shelves, which I can't believe I don't know what are called, and I'm talking to people who do. I think of them as submarine shelves because they have the that thing that shuts the thing that looks like the thing. Rolling stacks. Just testing you. And I like those because they feel like I haven't seen yet a thriller where someone is killed in them, but obviously that's what should happen. And so, and because they're kind of claustrophobic, I took all the books out at the All Souls Library that were about art, that weren't about painting. I'm doing a project, a novel inspired by a sculpture garden, and so I've been reading all about sculpture, and then it hadn't really occurred to me, stupidly, that I also am doing this in the land of sculpture. So not only was I working quite literally at the feet of the controversial Codrington statue in the library, but I would take a walk to clear my head and stop thinking about sculpture. Well, this is a terrible town. If you decide you don't want to think about sculpture, but you'd like to take a walk. And so my rate of research serendipity has been very, very high. It's led me to all sorts of libraries and all sorts of books. And I just shipped 3 crates of notes back to myself in San Francisco, where I will commence writing when I leave in a couple of weeks.
Wow. I'm about to reverse that process. I'm going to the American Academy in Rome, which is not a library, but which is a lovely building where they make your lunch and dinner to finish a book I've been working on. Yeah.
And he will report if the dinner and lunch is better.
And then
it is an All Souls.
Yeah.
Kind of work that out.
We'll see.
So thank you for taking care of the libraries, so people like us can meander through them, plucking things out, and thank you in advance for all the work you'll do on the index cards that you'll be dealing with in a few years when I die. I thought it was good, end on death.
Good, yeah. Very good. Do you want us to answer questions, or is it done because everyone has to go
How
back?
could anyone have a question?
Yeah, we can
Clap.
couple of questions, perhaps.
Whatever you like.
Just clap for the video.
Like,